Hello, Jenny Hall here for Trinity Stamps. Today I'm going to share 3 card ideas made from the same stamp set called Beary Special. This is a slimline stamp and it is sized perfectly for your slimline card. I'm going to use a companion set. It's not a coordinating die set, but it's some companion sentiments that work really well. I'll be placing the stamp and a piece of watercolor paper into my Misty stamping tool, and I'm going to stamp the image 2 times with Ink on 3's Blackout Ink. I need to add it 2 times because it's watercolor paper and sometimes it's hard to get a really good impression. After sprinkling on some clear embossing powder from Ink on 3, I'm heat setting the images. All of the Ink on 3 products today that I'm using are available in the Trinity Shop, and there are links in the video description. I have some ink refills that are also from Ink on 3, and they work like watercolors. So I'm using them to add some really easy colors. The 3 different versions of this card is that one of them is really easy. The second one is a bit of a step up, and that's this card here. And then the third would be by individually coloring all of the bears. I'm going to do the medium version for you here, and this one is using basic colors and just using it in different gradations, or maybe you can say the color is more diluted. And I'm going to color the bears individually, but they're pretty much all the same color. They're all from the Twiggy Brown ink refill. The way that I was able to get the color to be lighter was by adding more water to this little scribble of ink refill that's here on my work surface. I'm using a water brush that's also from Ink on 3, and I'm just adding this down to a wet piece of watercolor paper. All of that embossing with the image helps to keep, it's like a reservoir. It helps to keep all of the ink in one place. Now I've scribbled in a little bit of the really dark brown, and you can see here that you can get shades between really dark brown and much lighter, depending on the concentration that you use. Now, I have done the harder version of this and colored with Copic markers, and I have to tell you that that is a labor of love. This is a big stamp, and by coloring in with Copic markers and blending them, my hand was really bothering me at the end of coloring. And I didn't include the coloring process in the video here for the Copic version, but I wanted to show you something that I thought would be much more achievable. So here I am filling in, making sure that all of the areas are covered except for those that are kind of like special features, like the t-shirt on the bear or the balloon, the envelope, the little eyeglasses on one of the bears, the tie, the present. And I'm using a teal color, and this is the Trinity Teal ink refill. Now I want to keep the colors kind of simple, so I did everything brown and teal. Now here is the super simple version. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. First thing I did was to wet the paper. Remember, this is watercolor paper with an embossed image. And you can actually take and do the same way that I did the other version, but by adding different colors and letting them mix together. So these kind of remind me of gummy bears, you know, all the colors. Or what we can do to keep it really simple and still looks really cool is just to pretend like there's really not much of a background stamp going on, and just do a watercolor rainbow wash on the background here. That is my favorite out of all of these 3 versions, and that's because this works out so well. And the bears, they all show through. It doesn't take away from all of the unique look of all of the bears. And these Atelier ink refills from Ink on 3, they watercolor out so beautifully. I find myself grabbing them more often than I do my Daniel Smith watercolors or my Magello watercolors because they just work really well, and you can see how nicely they blend in together. So I've covered the whole background in a rainbow, and on the left did kind of a reverse rainbow, and made sure that both of the panels are dry. Now, because I have my piece of paper, it's cut to like 4 inches by, I would say, probably 8 3/4 or something, I'm going to have to cut the panels down. And I want them to be as nice looking as possible, so I used the Slimline Modern Embossed Panels die set. And I'm going to use some colored cardstock for the card base. Oftentimes I find myself grabbing mostly white for a card base, sometimes black or a craft color, but these 2 panels are full of color. So I wanted to help that whole color explosion along. And look at that rainbow. I tell you, it just makes me happy looking at it. And then I'm complementing the teal colors on the brown bears. And they're just so cute, aren't they? Now I'm going to add some liquid Pixie Dust. And this is from Ink on 3, also sold in the Trinity store. And I'm just adding it to those special areas, such as the hearts or the envelope or the present or the tie, the balloon. Those little areas that need a little something just to kind of catch the eye. So I'm going to add some sentiments from the Beary Special Sentiments die set. And I noticed that the little teal words just kind of fade into the background. So I did an additional die cut of all the words, and I've got an idea that I'm going to try right here while you're watching. Fortunately, I think it worked out well enough. So I kept the teal die cuts, and I'm adding white on top of it, but I'm offsetting it just a little bit. So you still see that teal color, so it pulls it in from all of the teal elements. And then you can see the white word that really is able to catch your eye and not get lost into the background. So this is an idea that I had, and I'm so glad it worked out. Now, I thought about doing the same thing on this card, but remember, this is the easy version, so I want to do everything I can to keep this one easy. I used some silver glitter paper, which is really thick paper, but it's still kind of, it didn't fade. It faded out a little bit more than I wanted it to. I wanted the sentiment to stand up a little bit more, but not overtake the bears. So I used a black fine line pen and went around the letters. So here are all 3 versions, and you can see here the one in the middle is Copic colored. The bears look really pretty, but oh my, that was a lot of coloring. And if you have arthritis in your hands like I do, then it's a bit rough. That inspired me to want to share more ways for you to use this stamp set. I hope that you like the easy version and the watercolored medium version with all those beautiful teal colors. And I'd love to hear which of the 3 is your favorite. Thank you for spending time with Trinity Stamps today, and we'll see you soon.